What's up everyone? Today on Seth Leroy Hustle Adventures, we are going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be telling our story. So without further ado, let's get into it.
I just want to let you guys know that this is actually a success story, and this is a true success story if you've ever heard one, and I thought it was definitely worth telling because I just want other people to know that if you're facing adversity or whatever, you can come out of that and you can really take hold of your life and create a life that you love. I thought that I'd just share with you kind of how we began our journey. Like, it's more financially than anything, but it's definitely a story of growth. I wrote it all down, so you'll see me looking down and reading, because when I'm talking to a camera, it's really hard for me to get my ideas out. It's really intimidating looking at a camera, even though it's just me and Seth in the room. Something I have to get used to. One day maybe I won't need notes, but I feel like I can really get my ideas down. This might be a long video because it really is a long story, but it's something that you'll enjoy because actually what happened in our lives, it's a rare thing to happen, and we're really glad that it all actually happened to us. We've definitely been blessed. So here I go. I just wrote down, this is a story about success. Two people who came into this world with the odds against them. It's a story about resilience, making a positive outcome out of a bad situation every time. It's about doing the work to manifest the life that you want. It's about beating addiction, breaking recidivism, achieving small success to gain confidence, staying intentional, growing spiritually, breaking the chains of employment, and creating a new standard in our own family for our children to look up to as role models and know that they can achieve success in everything that they want to do. It's about having faith and to do what's calling you. If you try, roads will become unblocked if it's meant for your journey. You only get one life and it's too short. So, starting out, we both came from poor families. We were never taught how to be successful adults. The better part of our 20s were spent being irresponsible. Even though I got to the point of being able to support my son and my son on my own, off of my income as a hairstylist, I was always dealing with Seth as an addict, and that was always the underlying problem in our lives. It was addiction. Seth had finally gotten himself into trouble one too many times, and I had enough. I started doing my own thing. And to my surprise, Seth got sober. That's where the beginning of our success began. And we started seeing how God's promises worked in our lives. 3 months into his sobriety, I got pregnant with our daughter, Everly. Seth was working on himself, and I was just starting to see a changed person. Although he didn't have a job or a car, I was seeing him being authentic for the first time and using the principles of AA every day. This was the first time that I met Seth as I know him today. I never knew him. And thinking back, I could never imagine him being the way that he ever was. How long ago did you get sober? Around 8 years ago? March
28th is 8 years.
Yeah, 8 years ago. We've been together for 13.
Yeah.
So we were together for 5 years before he got sober, and in those 5 years, it was like straight hell. Basically, in the beginning, I had no idea what I was getting into because I didn't know like much about addiction, or I just thought it was a normal thing maybe because my dad was an addict and then my brothers are addicts, and I just thought it was cool to do drugs, but I never knew anyone who did drugs like Seth did drugs. For real, and you were a bad person.
I'm very bad.
But I can't ever imagine him being that way ever again. So anyway, when I got pregnant, I freaked out because I was newly pregnant with a man's baby who I didn't trust was going to be sober. He promised me it was going to be okay, while being excited, scared, and dealing with the pregnancy, I also helped to get Seth's life back on track. And by helping him, like, okay, so help was never going to be doing things for him. He had to get a job and save money to get his license and a car. I was never gonna buy his license. I wasn't gonna buy him a car. He at this point, he was a felon, and the biggest problem in our lives was thinking that nobody would ever hire him. And we would be forever doomed to a hard life. We thought we were helpless. We thought he'd never get a job. So he ended up going to a temp agency and found work. We were so happy. He worked there my whole pregnancy at a plastic factory.
Yep.
And he stunk like plastic. Every time he came home, it was like the worst.
It was bad.
Being pregnant, you can like smell things. Like you have like this extra spidey sense of like smelling. So whenever he came home, I just wanted to like throw up. And he dreaded the place. And like I had to drive him to and from there, and he worked nights, so I'd drive him there every evening, and then I'd wake up super early to pick him back up from work. And it was like, you know, Minnesota, dead of winter was when all this really happened. Anyway, at this job, he saved for his license, a car, and even a couple grand for my maternity leave. He showed me so much promise. I always told him to tell me, I always told him not to tell me how he was going to do better, but to show me, and he did. The baby was born, and we were gonna move because I finished my associate's degree, and I was gonna do the next part of my schooling at a university. I got an apartment in my name, but I didn't add him onto the lease.
Nope.
Because he's a felon. The management of the apartment was really nosy and noticed him within a few weeks. And then they called me like, oh, who's the guy in your house? And I was like, damn, you watching me that much? I didn't like that anyways. It wasn't so much the fact that he was living there and I had to get a new place. It was so much that they were just like so nosy, and I didn't want them watching us all the time. So, let's see. We decided to break the lease of the apartment and temporarily move in with my mom. We were trying to buy a house on my income, so saving lots of money. The house idea didn't work out, but we were able to save up for 20% down, which is $5,000 on a nice trailer. And Seth was allowed to move in there, so we were like, okay, we can finally get a place, and he can live there too, and it's okay. We don't have to hide anything. Like, this is awesome, and it's our own. We can do any sort of painting we want. Like, and in a trailer, you can, like, be as loud as you want. So, like, Kaysen could, like, that's my oldest son, he could play, and he wouldn't be bothering anybody. So that was cool. This was the first time that we've achieved any sort of financial, like, success. Besides, like, okay, he did buy his first car and whatnot, and he did end up buying, multiple more cars, but, you know, that was actually, we bought a house. We consider that trailer like our first house, and it really helped us.
We all still reminisce about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't even mind living in a trailer ever again. It kind of would be nice because it was only like $7 something all together.
Yeah.
For the mortgage and the lot rent, and I mean that would be like banking. Yeah. Except for all of our kids in one little trailer would be like so hard. Anyways, so that was the first time we saved up any sort of big amount of money before, and that was like only $5,000, but that was a lot to us. During that time, Seth was working in a restaurant as a chef's assistant. When we moved to the trailer, Seth got a job as a boat rigger for like $14 an hour, and that helped pay bills and saved up money for a whole year to buy me a ring. So that's another thing he saved up for. He bought me my beautiful ring that I love. At this point, we were getting the idea that as a felon, it was important to always be stacking money in case he had a lapse in employment. Life living as a felon can be unpredictable. you never know when losing one job, if or when he'd be able to find another. And we also paid off debts to reduce our monthly bills so that we could pretty much stack as much money as we can without having a lot of money going out. So after living in the trailer for a little while, stacking money and stuff, we, decided, oh, we could go to Florida. We went to go visit my brother in Florida. We loved it there so much that when we came home, we felt like we had to break up with Minnesota and just move to Florida. Okay, so we got crazy and we sold everything. We found a house to live in Florida where the guy didn't care about Seth's record, and also sold our trailer for what we bought it for. We got a good chunk of money to start over in Florida. We got to Florida and Seth immediately got the first job he found for $10 an hour. Literally, it was like 3 days later and he was starting a job. It was for $10 an hour, but it was more than nothing, and it ended up supporting us for a couple months anyway. It was doing car detailing for a car lot. I was still on maternity leave after having another baby, which we save for that maternity leave too. But I started doing a hair again shortly, and I was working 4 days a week at the time. Seth hated the car detailing job. While he was at work, I found a job on Indeed that would be great for him. It was working at an AA-based treatment center as a recovery advocate. I filled out the application for him, not thinking anything would come about him. I didn't even tell him, but they ended up calling him while he was working. He got the job a few days later, and that job was for $14 an hour. He loved that job so much and found a sense of self-worth being able to help people who struggled with addiction like he did. Everyone loved him. He worked his way up to become an alumni coordinator where he was put on salary. The salary was only $34,000 per year, but that was huge to us. Like, we seriously felt like we hit the lottery because that was about as much as I was making at the time.
Yeah.
Or more, because I only worked 4 days a week, so I think my max I made was like $27,000 ever, and then here you are making $34,000, so then, he became the daddy of the house. While he was working there, the house we were renting started to have septic issues. The guy who owned the house was an old man who lived out of state in Maine. He didn't have the money to fix it, and he wanted to move and we wanted to move since he wasn't fixing the problem. Seth, the hustler that he is, talked the man into selling us the house in a deal that used owner financing, which is like a really good deal. If you can ever get owner financing it's either called owner financing or seller financing. If you could ever get that in your life and make it legit, like, it's definitely worth it. So we ended up buying the house for $85,000, making the payments to him, and then we fixed the septic tank. So after we ended up drawing up our agreement and signing it and everything, someone in the county told about our septic being faulty, and they got on us for it, but they agreed to hold off until tax time. But like, still thinking about that, I'm like, who told? We don't know if it was like the neighbor down the street, which is a total different story on this house, because he ended up being best friends with the guy who owned the house, and he's the one who like fixed up the house
and wanted to buy it,
but was mad when it was sold to us. So he felt like, it could have been his deal.
We most likely think he'd called them.
We think he called them, or I kind of have a slight feeling that the dude who owned the house kind of wanted this whole deal to like fall through, and like we'd have to continue to pay him.
Because he probably would think we didn't have the money to do it?
Yeah.
Yes. I get what you're saying, yeah.
So that we'd continue to pay him, because like, okay, we knew nothing about septic tanks.
Yeah.
So we thought it was just something I could have my dad do or something, but apparently, like, no, you can't. You need like big trucks
And it needs to be
septic
code
tanks
enforcement.
coded everything. Like,
Yep.
no, obviously not. You need permits and all that. So
Yep.
we were pretty stupid about that part. But luckily, the county agreed to hold off until tax time, and then we ended up fixing the septic tank for $7,500 after going to the title company to make the sale official. So we ended up putting the deed in our names, and everything became official and recorded, you know, with the registrar of the county and everything. So anyway, we were having fun in Florida, really sticking to a budget and working on paying the house off in 4 years. We had really big plans. This is a conversation in itself because it took a lot of persuasion from me to Seth, like to persuade him to actually do it this way. It took like a 4-hour car ride home from Georgia, and we had a long conversation about our goals and our future plans and what it would mean to have a house that was paid off. And the house was only $85,000, so that could easily be done in 4 years. And since it was owner financed, it was important to us to get rid of that debt. So while paying off the house, we taught ourselves that sticking to a budget and knowing where all your money is going actually feels like giving yourself a raise. Being in control felt good, and cash flowing things that people would charge to a credit card also felt good. It's fun to hand over a bunch of cash or simply write a check without worry. Even we went on a cruise that was all paid for before we even went on the ship, and that felt nice to just take a vacation knowing it was paid for and we didn't have any bills or remnants of like money to pay for after we got back home. But okay, so good thing we paid for that in full because Seth's work got new management and they started to get rid of the original workers one by one, and Seth was one of them. Right when we got back from our cruise, Seth was let go and we were devastated, to say the least. Seriously devastated. I couldn't eat. All of our plans were on the chopping board in the blink of an eye. So Seth got many more jobs after that. All of them were higher in pay, but they were not safe at all. They included tree work and dock work. Seth even went to see if a CDL would be an option, but his DUIs were still too fresh. So that was off the table. So he went to Georgia to work with my dad while I stayed in Florida, and that was great money, but we missed each other. It was becoming more clear that what we needed to do, and that was to sell the house.
Mm-hmm.
We realized that we could sell the house for so much more than what we bought it for, while getting the equity out of it too that we had put in by paying extra on the house. So I cleaned the whole entire house from top to bottom. I sold everything all by myself while he was in Georgia. I even repaired a hole that was in the ceiling. Like, I repaired a ceiling all by myself.
From the hurricane, yeah.
And I even dealt with someone who, the person, because we had a hole in our roof, so I had to deal with like that guy all by myself. But he did it for a good price and everything was good. So during that time, Seth had been talking to his brother, and his brother said that he could get a job in Minnesota working with him for the same as what he was making in Georgia. It would be inside and not as physical, which is good because his skin is like super white. So when he works outside jobs, he gets burnt. So like if we stayed in the South and he kept working these physical jobs outside, like, you know, skin cancer. So we'd take, you know, that pretty seriously. So we decided that we didn't belong in the South anymore, and we moved close to family. We left our house that wasn't even sold yet, and decided to do it remotely from Minnesota. I've never been through more stress in my life.
Crazy.
Never. Besides when we started the business just a little bit ago. But it had been up for sale for a little over a month before we finally sold it. It stood alone, empty through a whole hurricane and everything. Everything was fine, and the sale went through, and we ended up with $60,000 in our bank account. That was like the first time we've ever had any sort of money like that in our bank account. And if we'd never taken the chance to move to Florida when we were being so guided to do so, you need to listen to your heart when you're being guided to do something and everything's working out and it's not an uphill battle, but everything's going smooth to get you to where you need to be when you're planning on doing something. You need to take that chance and roll with it because there's a reason. So if we had never taken the chance to move to Florida and we were being so guided to do so, it would have taken years for us to save that kind of money. So we just had like a fast forward in life by doing that one step and having pretty much a vacation in Florida. That just seriously worked out for us. It felt like such a blessing, and because we moved for work so far away, even though we owned the house for under 2 years, we didn't have to pay any capital gains on that $60,000 that we'd just been blessed with. During all of this, our whole family was living with Seth's mom. It was so hard for his sister, and it was so hard. His sister and his nieces lived there too, and they're like clean freaks and we're messy, and all our kids, it just like was so hard. So we didn't think we'd be able to buy a house because of moving states and switching jobs. I know there's like lots of rules. You have to have a job for this same type of job for so long, and then you have to build like whatever credit in your state and stuff like that. But we met with a lender who looked at our situation, and he said, if anyone can get you a loan for a house, it would be me.
Yeah. My older brother lived there too. It was a packed house.
Oh yeah, and Isaiah lived there too. So that guy who said, I can get you a house, he definitely kept his word, and for the first time in his life, it was actually Seth who got the loan in his name. He was approved for almost like $300,000, we think. We didn't pay attention to that because we knew we wanted to actually stay like under $200,000, because we had the large chunk of money from the Florida house. We were able to afford a 20% down payment on a house in Minnesota. Houses are more expensive here. So we found a house that was for $205,000. That was the best we could do, and it's in a good location. It had more than any other house like in our neighborhood for that price. We looked at other houses that were around $205,000, and this house seriously had so much more than all the other houses. Like everything's finished in this house. All the trees are beautiful. It had a new roof, new windows, new siding, new garage doors. Like there's 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, beautiful yard. It's in a good location. Like this ended up being like the house for us. But notice we didn't buy at the top of our budget like a lot of people do. We stayed pretty low because we did the math on what the payment would be, and we realized that we don't want to be house poor. This was before house prices soared and about 5 months before COVID hit. Our interest rate was still low at like 3.99%. And I know a lot of people, they got better interest rates around this time, but one of the things that the lender said was that like Seth was kind of riskier to take on because we, of all the things. So 3.99% is still pretty good though, and our payment's like affordable. So we just went with it. We fell in love with the house and whatever. But anyway, so months later, the value went up by around like $60,000 on this house. So we bought in before price houses soared. So we feel like we did good. So here we are in this house, stacking money from his job, which right after he started, they bumped his pay up to $20 per hour. Seth was making the most money he had ever made in his life, and we were able to put a lot of money away. Life was like truly great once again after that whole ordeal happened in Florida. But then COVID hit. They closed the doors to his job and he never went back. We had a lot of time off to reflect together, and we thought that we should use this time for Seth to make the most out of it. It was finally time to get his CDL. Although Seth has proven to me time and time again that he is capable of so much, I was never more proud of him than I was when he worked so hard to earn his CDL. For our family, it was not easy, and even I would have said never mind on it all, but he did it. He said he had to. We paid for the schooling in cash, and we just had another baby, and he put his heart, soul, and mind into it. It was hard to get a job without experience when you first get your CDLA, so he got a job driving a 26-foot box truck, doing local regional runs. And then eventually that job, he ended up delivering to Leanne Chins all around Minnesota. So when he first started, it was for $18 an hour, but he had a lot of overtime. So he ended up actually making more money than he was making before because he didn't get a lot of overtime. His hard work earned him a raise from 18 to 22, and then eventually he was making $24 an hour. It was great money, but a lot of physical work for long hours doing the Leanne Chin stuff. So Seth ended up stretching his rotator cuff tendons and ripping bicep tendons. He couldn't work, and he was put on workers' comp. When the doc cleared him to work, even though his shoulder wasn't 100%, his shoulder still hurt. His work promised that they would put him on light duty, but and then too, after the doctor appointment, I just want to add that. So our camera died, but I'm just gonna jump right back into it. So I was saying, after his doctor appointment that he had, we drove home in silence. We were happy that we would be making more money again, but sad that the fun was coming to an end, and he was once again gonna be like a slave to a job and all that, and worked like a horse while he's hurt and stuff. So we talked, but not seriously, about him being an owner-operator, and I was like, now's a good time to look into all that and seeing what it would take to get your authority and buy a vehicle and all that, but we never talked seriously about it. So he went back to work, and they put him right back to physical labor. He quit a day later. And we started the new journey to become an owner-operator of a cargo van, and we started our own business. You can watch our video on how we started that business. I wish I would have recorded more of the process of that. It was definitely a stressful process. I compare it to selling a house, like that sort of level of stress, because we put a whole bunch of money into it. And of course it just doesn't happen right away, and he didn't have a job. I just had my job, but I was working 1 day a week, and so he did DoorDash. We tried to flip things from Goodwill, stuff like that, but we had enough money to tie us over until everything got rolling, and everything just ended up working out. It was great. But I just wanted to add that part of the success was really paying attention to your finances and being intentional about what you spend your money on, and so things that we did, we've never had a new car. Like our minivan is a 2007 Chrysler Town & Country that we've had for 5 years now. He has a Honda Fit that he's had for about 4 years now. And they both run really well, so used cars are definitely not bad. But yeah, we've never had a car payment. We pay attention to what we buy. If we don't need it, we don't buy it. We bought the cheapest house in our neighborhood, basically. We don't do credit cards. We always keep money in the bank. We always have money, a good amount of money. Even right now as I speak, we have janky kitchen appliances. Our microwave doesn't spin, our dishwasher doesn't work, our oven burner you know, it burns super hot on one of them and the rest are okay. But, you know, like those shelves in our refrigerators are broken. But we just deal with it because the stuff still works. So, like, why rush out to buy brand new things? We have the money to do it, but, like, we're just not going to do that yet, you know? We shop at thrift stores. We've learned how to be content with what we have, basically. We get satisfaction out of doing free things and spending time as a family, watching movies and playing video games in the living room. We only buy things that are, you know, like I said, that we need, but that we've already saved up the money for. We just stick to the plan that we set out. We always put aside the amount of money that we plan to put aside, and we only spend the amount of money that we delegate is to be spent, and that's it. But by doing that, we are able to build up enough money to basically buy our cargo van outright, and have this whole cargo van business work out, and we still have money in the bank after doing all that. So, like,
well, yeah, we bought everything outright.
Everything outright, yep. And so starting this business, because people always ask him, oh, how did your wife react to this or whatever, and basically over the years Seth has made every one of my dreams come true, and I really feel like he deserved this, and I love him so much. I never wanted him to ever regret not trying this ever in his life. So I always supported him to do it because he just needed to, and we couldn't go on anymore like him working. It just wasn't working out in our lives. We wanted to have more control. So I've said this in another video too, we had no reservations. We couldn't go back to that life, so we had to make this work. And I'm not saying like we've made it or we're done or anything, or like we're on a mountaintop of success now, because we aren't finished. We're still on our journey, and we have many goals for the future. I'm just proud of where we came from, because we really did come from the lowest of like lows, the lowest you could be. Like Seth was a meth head, basically. So for him to come from being like a skeevy little meth head to like now we own this great house, we have a business, like things are going great for us. Our kids are, yeah, we have a really good family. I feel so blessed, and I'm really happy that happened to us in the beginning, that we could come from that, because we wouldn't really have been able to appreciate like where we are now. And I just want to encourage everyone, especially those who face adversities, that you can become successful too. Just never give up. Make good out of bad. Always make good out of bad. Whenever a bad thing happens, don't get down. Just turn around and figure out how you're going to make it up to yourself. You know, there's always something good you can make out of something bad. And then no matter what, always celebrate your small achievements, because it's those little achievements along the way that add up to everything in life. So I hope you got a lot out of my story, out of our story. I'm really glad I could share it with you. I hope you liked it. And I know like success has many definitions, and everyone has different ideas of whatever success is, you know. So to some of you, this might not be like a huge success story or whatever, but for us, this is like major success. Like I said, especially thinking about where we came from, we're really proud of it. So I hope that, yeah, I could inspire anybody, or, you know, so yeah, thank you so much for watching. It was fun getting to go back and think about everything that added up to all the big things in our lives, and I'm happy that I have it on camera, and you know, we'll always go back and watch this video, I'm sure, in the future after we've got way many more successes under our belts. And this will be really special to us to even think that what we've done now is a huge success, because I'm sure, like, you know, in the future we have so many big things that we're just so excited about that, you know, wow, it's gonna be amazing. But anyway, have a good night and thanks for watching.